And now, WolfBytes Open Mic.
The Bass Jackers.
I just came home actually from tour.
Hey guys, this is Phoenix Paul.
Hey, what's up? This is Sean Frank.
WolfBytes DJs and your favorite artists.
Sophie Francis. Sophie, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, it's super nice to join you guys.
What's up, guys? This is Armin van Buren.
Now, Open Mic.
What is up, guys? This is Midnight Maddog right here on WolfBytes Radio, and I have the privilege to be sitting here with Morgan Madison, or I guess I'm sitting here on Zoom with Morgan. And he's very well known here on WolfBytes for Tell Me Who You Are from the start. And as you guys are fully well aware, in the past couple weeks, he's had Breathe Again and Tell Me here on WolfBytes Radio. As of today, we have his sophomore album, Odyssey, and it's officially out. And full disclosure, I'm recording this before the album has come out, but this is a big deal for WolfBytes Radio and for Morgan Madison. I want to know, from your perspective, Morgan, I feel like with Tell Me Who You Are being such a big success, we are in kind of this whole new, maybe peak, best, biggest era of Morgan Madison. Does it currently feel like that to you, coming off of your big success of your first album a couple years ago?
Kind of, yeah. I feel it took a long time since my first album in 2021 to figure out what to do next besides just going from single to single. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely feel within the last year like a new artist. I'm just really happy with all the new music. It feels like it's a new sound and a new era. It's just been a long journey because I love that first album so much that it was kind of scary to do a second one. And I've been working on this one for 3 years to make sure it's just bigger and better. So I do feel that way now, but it was pretty daunting making this new album. It's like, I had to make, because the first album was 12 tracks and I was really passionate about it, and this one's 16. So we really had to put a lot of work into building it and just making the songs bigger and better than that album. So yeah.
And the Phantasma album released 3 years ago. We're going to come back to that because, you might say it saved your career. You might say it started your career. It was a really big and pivotal moment in your life that album was released. And we'll talk a bit about your old careers and kind of how you got into EDM.
Yeah.
Sure. But for the moment with Odyssey, what are some of your favorite tracks you're looking forward to people hearing as it all gets rolled out today? What are some of the things you're most excited about with Odyssey?
Yeah, so one of our big goals going into this album was to just build it slow and make sure that the album had just like a lot of huge moment songs. Like Tell Me Who You Are is one of those. Even in a different way, like Fantasy, that came out back in April. That's like a super heavy clubby track, but it still feels like a big moment. That's what I'm really excited about, and it takes that sort of concept takes shape in different ways. Like when the album starts, there's a intro called Deepest Truth that is kind of like has these like spoken vocals in it about like letting go of what you can't control, and then it goes into this like crazy 5-minute. It's probably the most interesting track I've ever made. It's a collab with Villager and Pastel. And it's like it feels really huge, but the sound design's really weird. There's like some eighth note growls in it. There's some really anthemic like screeches and stuff. Just really interesting sound design stuff that people haven't heard in the singles leading up to the album. And then there's also like just some really cool risk taking. There's a breakbeat song. There's a classic prog song like 2010 era Deadmau5 I Remember style down tempo song called Overdrive, and people haven't heard like a classic prog song from me like that in a while, so I'm really excited about that. And probably my favorite on the album personally is it's the last big song. It's like song 15 out of 16. It's called Get to Fly, and it's with Ashanova and my friends HILYTE, who I met through my Twitch streams. Right. And it's this 5-minute closer song that goes from like an ambient intro, and then it goes into breakbeat, and then it goes into like full-on prog trance above and beyond. So yeah, I'm just really excited. It feels like the whole album feels like a big just a big way for me to show off my growth as an artist and not just a collection of songs, you know?
Yeah. I'm scrolling through the Spotify, like the pre-release of of Odyssey at the moment, and I can see such a big variety of. You're already mentioning like the length of the songs, but I can't wait to hear all of the different varieties in style. In maybe would you say genre changes at all throughout the album? You've already talked about breakbeats, stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, I for a while, like after my first album, I was putting out singles, and I was trying different things, but with singles, you don't get to say a lot in terms of, because with singles, the whole point is to just like build your artist profile, and you got to worry about things with singles that you don't have to worry about on albums. So with singles, you just have less room to really explore. And yeah, on this album, there's so many genres. There's like, there's anything from like electro to like fantasy's like almost big room. Like there's full on trance on this album. There's breakbeat, there's down tempo, and there's the last song, Little Life, on the album is completely ambient. Wow. Which is really cool. I'm really excited about that. So
yeah, as of currently, Fantasy and Breathe Again are probably my two favorites. Fantasy because of the big house, like the big drop that we have there, especially going into some of the later ones. I'm sure that was a really fun one to put together. But I also might say Tell Me Who You Are is a favorite. It's definitely been having the most success here on WolfBytes Radio.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. You
mentioned meeting HILYTE on your Twitch streams. I want to feel more into how often have you been doing those Twitch streams? Fill people in on what the Work in Progress Wednesdays are all about, and how often do you plan on doing those?
Well, so I did them a lot. So right after my first album came out, Living the Phantasm dropped in like April 2021. I think I did them for like 6 months straight then, and then I did about a touring with deadmau5 and stuff for like a year and a half. And during that, it was just single, and it was a lot of work. So I did them a lot in the first 2 years since that album. I started to wane off and take a break over the last year, but I just started doing them again, and I think from now on it'll be more regular. We'll see. It's just really fun because nobody ever gave me honest, constructive feedback when I was starting. I would send songs around, and it would either just be like, this sucks, or like, reference this or reference that, but it would never be, I see what you're trying to do. Like, here's some references and here's some things you can do next to do what I think you're trying to do. And I've really loved doing that. And when I first started streaming back in 2021, the HILYTE guys were like, they were starting off as a duo, and they had their own stuff before that. But I don't think they came into their own until we first started meeting, and they kept sending in tracks, and they just got exponentially better to the point where like now I consider them better at like mix master stuff than I am. It's been just really cool. And there's a couple of those people from the streams that I've watched grow, and they're just like young prodigies.
Yeah. Who would you say currently, or when you were kind of coming up, were your closest mentors, or who was with you listening to your music, giving you constructive feedback? How much of that was kind of learnt on your own, and how much of that was learnt alongside of people you can trust?
I had nobody. I didn't really, I had to do it all myself. I started producing music in like 2009, I guess. And I sucked really bad for like 8-9 years, and I didn't get signed onto a label until 2018. And then even at that, the music was still kind of like 80% there. It wasn't great. And no one really, like, early off, there's this guy OTR that you can look up. Like, he was one of the guys that first, back in 2018-ish, started to just be candid with me about how the industry works, and just focusing on what your sound is and finding a niche and all that. So other than that, like I actually was going to quit music in 2020 during the pandemic because it just didn't seem like there was any hope. And then it was like crazy for me because out of the blue, it was like I made Living the Phantasm with no expectations, and then deadmau5 signed it with no alterations. And I think, yeah, I don't know. It's my story is a little odd in that regard because I never got any full support from anyone until he picked me up. So,
and that's quite a approval, or that's quite a guy to pick you up, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. It was really cool. It was definitely, and he's deadmau5 is deadmau5. Like he never, other than that, he always just put me on shows or like promoted the songs on his radio show or whatever, or played some of them live occasionally. But he never was like fix this or fix that. He just kind of let me be myself. I think that's kind of why I'm here. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. Another part of your process that I've heard you talk about quite a bit is like enjoy the process. You've said that a couple times. I saw a really inspirational Twitter post you had about enjoying the journey, and that's what it's all about. You talked about wanting to quit music in 2020, and then the past 3 years you've been working on this next album. What has enjoy the process looked like over the course of those 3 years?
Yeah, like I think at the core, a lot of when it comes to EDM and like scene or whatever, I feel like, especially in house music, whether it's progressive house or tech house, like whatever the hell type of house music you're making, in dance music, for me, I've always had the sense that since I got into the scene as an actual artist back in like 2019, 2020 and onward, I've always had the sense that it's more about like where your songs fit sometimes than is the song good. You know what I mean? And I've worked really hard, and what takes up a lot of my time is just getting in the space to where you're making the music to make the songs good, and making like progressive house and EDM that is inspiring and good music before it fits a genre niche or before it's like appealing to a certain label signing.
Wow.
So like on a musical level, like that's kind of what I mean is, and a lot of it has to do with the struggle that I felt once, because I never planned to be doing this now. And so when I got picked up, I started to feel the pressure of stuff I didn't expect. Like I started to feel the pull of like, stop making, raw Morgan records that are super Morgan-y and start making stuff that appeals to like X, Y, and Z signings so that you can get X, Y, and Z looks from the scene. And I don't think like that approach ends up having the best actual listener experience for fans. And I don't think it's like the healthiest process mentally for artists. So that's kind of what I mean creatively. But in terms of like, enjoy the process of like be the artist life, like I still work on that today. It's been and part of the reason the album's called Odyssey is because during this last 3 years since that album, it's been like, I'm not the Taj Mahal, I'm no John Summit, but like even for me, it's like the lifestyle is just very strange and exhausting, and you never get a chance to like ground yourself and feel like you're focused. It's just, and I feel like a lot of artists, including myself, have a lot of trouble with getting lost in the grind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can also personally attest to, so often in EDM music, I hear like this album feels like a really great collection of singles, right. I'm so glad that X producer wrote these 10 songs that fit really well on the radio. But at the end of the day, like the listener experience, what you're just kind of talking about, the listener experience of the album doesn't feel like an album, so to speak. You've already kind of talked about how proud you are of this album. Do you feel like that enjoy the process even kind of lays itself into how the listener experiences the process?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like if we look at, I always like to frame it as, if we look at like the all-time greats of EDM, it's like the Neros, the Kaskades, the deadmau5s, the Above and Beyonds, like you name it. There's even Odessa. doing what they do over in their space, like they all basically they do their thing first and then it fits where it fits afterwards. And I think that's the best thing for the listener, and I think it's the best thing for the longevity of the artist too, because singles are cool and a hit single's great, and like all those artists I listed definitely have those,
Right.
but yeah, there's nothing quite like the emotional connection of someone referencing, Angel on My Shoulder from Kaskade back in 2008, like the EDX remix. It was like, what genre is that? Nobody really knows. It's kind of prog house, it's kind of plucky, but like, and it fits in the space in its own way, and there needs to be more of that and these days. And that's not to say people don't do that. I mean, dude, like I think John Summit's doing that right now with big prog house anthems. Who switches over from tech house and it makes Where You Are and Shiver and stuff like that, and making like big prog house cool again. Like I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, every time that I heard you talk about prog house, whether it's on your Twitch streams or on other interviews, I've always thought to myself, who is Morgan Madison's like dream collab? Would you want to work with John Summit?
Oh yeah, that'd be sick. I mean, he's completely unattainable at this point. So, I mean, probably Kaskade. That'd probably be my dream collab, honestly.
Can you see yourself collabing with an artist that is maybe a totally different genre? I remember I was talking with Conroe on an interview, and he brought up One Republic. He wanted I think it was One Republic or maybe it was Coldplay that he wanted. It was Coldplay that he wanted to collab with. Can you think of any other artists that you would just be creatively inspired to be around?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you brought up Coldplay. Like, some of my all-time favorite songs are from Coldplay. I've got a couple of their vinyls over on the shelf.
Right.
Yeah, like, I just love acts like that. I don't know. It's hard to say on the spot. I guess if we're talking like at a scale that big, I mean, yeah, like Coldplay's awesome. This is super left field. Like, working with Snow Patrol would be pretty cool. Like,
Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol's like a band. They did that hit Chasing Cars, but I think that, like, if we're talking external genre spheres, like they have this album called, I think, 100 Million Suns or something.
Okay.
And I think that's like one of the best alternative albums of all time. Super slept on. So I don't know. Hard to say, man.
Wow, I have to look into them a bit more. It looks like they're from a while ago. I guess they have some recent releases.
Yeah, well, that record they blew up in 2003 or
maybe?
4. Yeah, they're like prime like 2000s alt rock. It's so angsty.
That's amazing. Speaking of collabs, you've been with Ryan Lucian quite a bit. And how has that looked like working on, I think, let's see, past year and a half, you've worked on 4 songs with him, or at least released 4 songs with him. How has that been with your creative process and with him as an artist?
Yeah, like one thing I like to do is I like to collab with, like, you'll see on this album, it's just collabing with people that are like really inspiring to me. And we were just talking about collabs that are like left field genre wise. Like the first song on Odyssey is with Villager, and Villager's like some sort of like fantasy based act. I would describe him as, like, he's plays a lot of techno live, but like, I just work with him because he's like really inspiring. But the situation with Ryan Lucian is really cool because he had no publicly released music until we put out From the Start. And the way that happened was my former manager is from Australia, and he hit me up one day and he was like, "Hey, there's this guy Ryan Lucian from Australia. His manager sent me a demo, and I happened to look at it. It was like some really interesting stuff going on there." He sent me it, and what that song was basically like this really stretched out, like a bit more sparse version of like what From the Start would become. And then once we started working together, we found that Ryan was learning a lot on the songwriting and like arrangement and like that perspective of things. And then like what he was really way ahead of it still is ahead of himself on, is like crazy synth design stuff. And so, yeah, we just started jamming together on a lot of songs, and you can hear a lot of the result of that in those 4 tracks. Just every song is like a tighter, more condensed, like super anthemic prog record. So
yeah, it's so cool. I've also been thinking a lot about what kind of synthesizers do you tend to use? You talked about Ryan Lucian sound designing himself in excellent ways. What has that looked like for you? What kind of synthesizers do you use? Is it digital? Is it analog? I'm kind of foreign to this world, but I also have produced music before in some ways. I like to know what's kind of your creative process. What are things you jump to?
I don't have any analog gear actually. I've stayed with the studio setup that I have used since 2017 is the same exact one I have today. Like I haven't added anything, except like, and I don't want to, because I feel with me, like when I bring new tools in, it's distracting. And it takes a while for me to like fully utilize those new tools. But like in terms of favorite synths, VST wise, like I'm really into the Arturia Mini V3 because it sounds analog, but you can get a lot of really cool lead sounds. And I think a lot of the custom Morgan sound or whatever that you can hear on songs is because of these, like just a few lead synth patches that I use in almost everything and just tweak. But like, interestingly, like I'll do sound design sometimes, but I have a much better time like creating atmospheres and tracks. You won't find a lot of crazy like baseline texture stuff going on in Morgan tracks unless it's like a collab. Like I think there's 2 tracks on Odyssey that are really heavy sound design tracks, and those are probably Fantasy, and then the first track, Illithid's March with Villager. So
that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been a good time.
I'd like to know, so as of today, Odyssey is out. I'd like to know what are some things we can look forward to from Morgan in the next 1 year, but do you have any idea of what you'd be doing 5 years from now? Maybe what is maybe something super big on your horizon of Morgan Madison's career, some major goals that you want to hit sometime in the next little while?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I was just talking about this. I was in LA last week for watching the Tritonal show and just linking up with some friends, and they were asking similar stuff. And I was kind of like, there's a lot I want to do, but in terms of like personal bucket list items, like I've crossed out a lot of my biggest bucket list items already, which is weird. Like I look back on like Red Rocks, and I played my favorite club from when I was a teenager called Echo Stage twice. And I played Brooklyn Mirage, and like from now on, what I'm really looking forward to most is just kind of like doing my thing and continuing to do it in a way that's satisfying to me and the listeners that I know really care about it. And I think Odyssey is a really huge step in that direction. Like we have a really beautiful vinyl that we've launched to accompany the album, and like, you know, I'm excited to just keep doing my own thing. I don't know when album 3 will happen.
Sure.
But a couple of my own tours that are like more intimate shows that are about the people that really care about what I do. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. Launching some merch too. It's going to be nice. And
yeah, actually on your Twitch stream, you were talking about some of the merch and you were writing down ideas, your most recent one a couple weeks ago, writing down some ideas. They were all great ideas. I mean, like you got to send us the link and
yeah, I'll plug you up. Yeah. I'm making some revisions right now. I wanted to wait until like a big moment, like this second album to like launch any merch. And because, you know, it's one thing to have cool merch. It's another thing to set it up and have it be fun and on brand and interesting. And I didn't want to launch anything before, you know, in the first year or 2 of my career before I really knew who I was or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, from looking at some of the best ways to kind of know what's going on with Morgan Madison's fan base, to look on Spotify and look at monthly listeners, look at track streams, I can't help but feel you have a super, super loyal fan base. I can tell that from your internet presences, but I can also just tell that from how some of your biggest songs, are under 1 million streams, but you still got 100 and almost 30,000 monthly listeners. I'm sure that's going to go way up as soon as the album is up. What do you feel about your core fan base? I know you probably meet with a lot of them over your Twitch streams. What is it like interacting with them?
It's really cool, dude. I never, again, like, a lot of the story of this album is just, I never expected that. For me, it's like, I've always been an appreciator and a fan myself. And looking back, when I was a fan in 2010 of like deadmau5 and Kaskade, I wasn't in their live. I would kind of hang out in live streams, but I would mostly just consume their music. I was never on forums or anything. I was just such a huge fan just in real life. And I don't know. I haven't really tried to be a personality to consume, like,
sure,
my personality's there for sure. Like, I'm a pretty weird guy and I have fun with stuff, but I'm kind of with you. It's been really satisfying for me because I could put the music out, and it does seem like a lot of the population that hears my stuff like understands where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And there's that really potent, like, nostalgic EDM sauce that I put into everything because that's just what I care about. And I feel like people feel that, and I'm super, super grateful for that. And like, that's what I want to keep building on. I don't really want to be like doing crazy shit on Twitter like all the time. I just want to put out music that genuinely resonates with people for a longer time. And yeah, it does feel like, on Spotify, it's like the monthlies are high, but like, it feels like all the music is kind of rising at one level together.
And that's super inspiring, and that's a testament to your style. And
thanks,
just
really
how much they're able to shuffle your album, how much they're able to just regularly come back to all of the tracks. Yeah,
thank you. I mean, it is scary because sometimes I put stuff out and it feels dated. Like, there have been tracks where, especially with the prog house stuff I was doing back in 2021, 2022, it's like, no other DJ is going to play that in a set. It's not the new James Hype. It's not like the new This Never Happened release. It's just kind of like a Morgan track. But that's what I want to do. And I make stuff these days that's more playable. I think this album's a really nice meeting point, but like, yeah, I want to have a career where I own what I do, and like, I just do that as long as I want to do that. That's kind of my whole thing. And I've tried other stuff and it just doesn't feel authentic when I do it. Like, I tried putting out one tech house track on House Trapped called Get It Back. And I look back at that song and I'm like, well, like, that was kind of weird. Maybe won't do that again, but like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is Midnight Maddog, and we will definitely be streaming Odyssey. It's officially out today. If you haven't streamed it all the way top to bottom, you definitely should, because Morgan Madison is here, and it's inspiring to hear someone who really, really cares about the music and really cares about the process and really cares about everything he's putting out to his audience. Is there anything else that we want to hear from you? Anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to promote as this album is officially out?
Just thanks so much for listening. I can't believe I'm still here today. I'm so happy to be doing what I do. And Odyssey is my magnum opus. I love it so much. I hope you guys do too. And go cop the vinyl if you have a record player. So
yeah, and now that I'm looking at the album cover, I mean, the album cover has been available for a couple weeks now, but man, that's going to look crazy on a vinyl.
Dude, yeah, it's going to be cool. Before we go, one funny story about that is to add to the Odyssey journey theme, the whole data bending approach to the artwork. I actually did myself, and I made it using the very first photo effect that I ever learned to do back in like 2013.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, it's like whole circle. It's good. It's fun times. So
that's very, very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure being with you, Morgan Madison. Go check out Odyssey album, and we will see you guys right here on WolfBytes Radio.